3 months after breaking up, my ex-boyfriend suddenly called. The bar is empty. Qian, why aren't you picking me up? My eyes welled up instantly, and I forced back tears, asking him softly where he was. The phone erupted with wild laughter. He was out of breath. You're kidding, right? I'm playing truth or dare. I choked out, you can call me anything you want, Guyi, just take me home. The line went dead. Damn it, who is Guyi? 3 months after the breakup, my illness flared up again. That dream I hadn't had in ages came back to torment me. In the dream, a darkly handsome man kissed me and did the most intimate things, but then pressed a gun against my waist. He said he loved me in agony, then pulled the trigger with red eyes. The gun went off, but there were no bullets inside. My dagger, however, sliced open his neck without hesitation. In the dream, the man died, but before he did, he smiled triumphantly and told me to take him home. A wave of immense sadness washed over my heart, and I woke up gasping for breath. It's absurd, but this dream tormented me for 3 years. The excruciating pain from the dream lingered even after waking, leaving me trapped in the agony of losing the one I loved. I went to see a psychologist and told him I had fallen in love with the person in my dream. His name was Guyi. After hypnosis and sleeping pills proved ineffective, the doctor suggested I try dating someone else to see if I could transfer my feelings. If not, it could at least help me move on. That's when Jordan appeared. He looked exactly like the person in my dreams. I once believed he was the Guyi from my dreams. The same eyebrows, the same voice, even the careless curve of his lips was identical. In the bar, he leaned against the corner with drunken eyes, grabbed the hem of my shirt, and asked if I could take him home. That glance felt like a lifetime ago. I thought my Guyi had finally stepped out of my dreams. I brought him home and stayed by his side on the sofa all night. But when he opened his eyes and met my sorrowful gaze, he burst into laughter. He laughed, his shoulders shaking. Nothing happened? I'm a bit disappointed. He glanced at my collar. Next time, pull your collar down lower. I might not fall asleep so quickly. Even though he was unreasonable, a sense of fate made me set aside my pride and walk with him. At first, I loved him so much I couldn't let go. I would ask him anxiously at sunset, when the sky was blood red, if he would ever leave me. I would wake up in the middle of the night, reach out to touch his neck, and only fall asleep after confirming there were no wounds. I poured all the guilt I felt toward Guyi in my dreams onto him, indulging him endlessly. I cleaned up the messes he made without a single complaint. When he was hospitalized, I stayed by his side day and night, afraid that if I blinked, he would disappear like in my dreams. He would often stare at me blankly and mutter, "Why didn't we meet sooner?" At the time, I didn't understand the depth of his words, until that Valentine's Day date. Jordan, who had always been low-key, suddenly broke his usual pattern and arranged a high-profile date with me. At a high-end restaurant, he walked toward me with a bouquet of flowers in his hand. His lazy stride and intense gaze drew the attention of many girls, some even taking out their phones to take photos. He glanced at the person taking the photo, smiled, and said, "Take a better photo." Then he leaned down and pressed his lips against mine in a long, lingering kiss. I could feel something pounding in my chest, as if it were about to burst out. Amidst the cheers, he asked the person for the photo and posted it on his social media. I thought, is he finally taking this absurdly started relationship seriously? However, after doing all that, he seemed distracted. Facing my excitement and nervousness, he half-heartedly brushed me off, glancing at his phone every now and then. It wasn't until he received a call from someone labeled A that he suddenly straightened his posture and glanced out the window. I told him to go ahead and take care of his business, but he hung up the phone and smiled at me affectionately. "Being with you is the most important thing today," he said, picking up a piece of food and feeding it to me. He probably didn't even realize that what he was feeding me was raw lettuce used for garnish. After feeding me, he picked up a napkin and wiped my mouth, but my lips weren't dirty. A bad feeling crept over me. Sure enough, after a series of intimate gestures, the phone started ringing wildly. Over and over again. Jordan gave a helpless smile and pretended to reluctantly say he had to leave for work. I smiled and told him to hurry back, but he looked at me with a complicated expression, hesitated for a few seconds, and then turned and left in a hurry. I found myself following him and saw a beautiful girl standing downstairs not far away. From that angle, she could see everything Jordan and I had done in the restaurant. A thought sent a chill down my spine. Was Jordan's high-profile date actually for this girl? Jordan had left in a hurry, but as he approached the girl named Lynn, he slowed down and adopted an impatient expression. He said he was on a date and told Lynn to say whatever she had to say quickly. Lynn looked heartbroken and asked him why he was treating her like this. She said, "Even if I don't agree to be your girlfriend, you can't just treat yourself like this. How can you do this to someone who cares about you?" Jordan remained silent for 2 seconds. His silence felt like a verdict, declaring that I was indeed just someone he could treat any way he wanted. After a moment, he snapped angrily. "How do you know I can't really fall in love with her?" Lynn gave a bitter smile. "Don't you know what love feels like?" Saying this, she grabbed Jordan's collar and tiptoed up to kiss him. A passionate, domineering kiss left Jordan frozen in place. In an instant, Lynn pulled away. Chaos and confusion, that's what makes the heart race. "So, Jordan, even if I didn't agree to be with you, you shouldn't just find someone to hurt yourself with." At that moment, I hid behind a pillar and cried silently. At that moment, I realized I wasn't destined to be with him. I was just someone he randomly chose to provoke Lynn. He hated how Lynn was indecisive, so he picked me at random. He chose me in the bar, saying that someone with a cold exterior must be wild and private. He bet I'd end up picking someone up in the bar, and I really did pick him up. I stood behind the pillar, like a peeping Tom, watching them go from a heated argument to embracing each other and kissing passionately. They looked just like the protagonists in a tragic romance novel, and I was just a disposable character. A sharp pain pierced my heart, and I decided to break up with him. But whether it was an illusion or not, the suffocating feeling in my chest that had been there for 3 years because of Guy had eased significantly. Perhaps that was what Doc meant by withdrawal. That night, Jordan didn't come back until very late. I checked his social media, and the photo of him showing off his love was gone. We met again a few days later. Jordan arrived looking tired and rushed, hugged me as if we hadn't seen each other in ages, and kissed me passionately. He closed his eyes, savoring the moment. I wondered if he was sensing the chaos Lynn had mentioned in this kiss. I pushed him away. He looked away nervously, his eyes filled with guilt and confusion. A sharp pain surged in my chest. This time, I was certain that the suffocating feeling in my chest was indeed fading. Since he had used me first, treating him as a detox medication seemed justified. In the days that followed, under my indulgence, Jordan grew increasingly bold. He treated me with alternating coldness and passion, showering me with affection when he needed me, only to neglect me once he had achieved his goal of provoking Lynn. It wasn't until Lynn distanced herself from him again that he would remember me as his tool. And throughout it all, I pretended to be unaware, humbly and cautiously playing the role of his loyal follower. His friends all knew I was a willing stand-in, mocking me as a lapdog, and sometimes even forgot to spare me. At the time, Jordan only symbolically told them to keep their comments to themselves. He was constantly testing my limits, and once he realized my indulgence had no boundaries, he began to show me less respect. I endured the pain of betrayal and manipulation, gradually completing my withdrawal in the process. I clearly felt that every time Jordan used Guya's face to boss me around, my attachment to Guya diminished a little more. That dream rarely came anymore. The suffocating sensation in my chest was almost gone. I was using this self-destructive method to constantly say goodbye to Jordan and Guyi. I thought I was about to succeed. That night, I dreamed of Guyi again. He seemed to sense something and bid me farewell. He said, "It's been a long time, Nancy. Have you almost forgotten me? If forgetting you makes you happier, I have no problem with that." In the dream, his figure grew distant, but the bloodstain from the knife I had used on his neck remained. I woke up crying, my heart aching so much I couldn't breathe. I dialed Jordan's number as if to save myself. He said, "What a coincidence, I was just about to call you." He said his car had broken down on a rural road and asked me to pick him up. I left without hesitation. When I arrived, I found out he was going to his hometown to pick up his sick friend Lynn. Before I could say anything, he beat me to it, telling me not to misinterpret their childhood friendship. Whether it was to avoid suspicion in front of me or to continue provoking Lynn, he chose to sit in the passenger seat, leaving Lynn alone in the back seat. Unfortunately, as soon as the car drove onto the rural road, it collided with an out-of-control tractor coming from the opposite direction. I thought of Guye's departing figure in my dream, and panic made me frantically turn the steering wheel. Jordan was unharmed. I was thrown by the airbag, my eyes bloodshot, trapped in the driver's seat and unable to move. In a daze, I heard Jordan's heart-wrenching screams. He was calling out for Lynn. At that moment, I distinctly felt the suffocating pressure on my chest begin to fade, and I knew I was about to overcome my addiction. But when I woke up in the hospital, Jordan was staring at me with bloodshot eyes and demanded we break up. He looked at the bandage on my forehead, which was seeping blood, and trembled as he said, "It was just a game. Why did you take it so seriously?" I was terrified. I cried and begged him, "We can break up, but can we wait a little longer? Just until I successfully quit." I was a mess, looking pitiful and desperate, drawing whispers from those around us. Jordan's eyes showed reluctance, but he eventually clenched his fists and fled in disarray. I knew he was afraid. I had risked my life to save him, and he couldn't bear it. But did he, a spoiled playboy, also fear trampling on someone else's genuine feelings? Or perhaps it wasn't fear, Lynn had been hurt, and he wanted to fight for himself with all his heart. In any case, for whatever reason, my withdrawal was interrupted just as I was about to succeed. I spent the next 3 months living in constant fear, always worried that the same thing would happen again. But it did. After having that dream again, I suddenly woke up. I curled up in bed, trembling as I lit a cigarette. The smoke filled the air with the familiar scent from the dream, but my heart ached even more. Jordan's call came in at that moment, like a lifeline. A low, slightly aggrieved voice came through unexpectedly. "The bar's empty." She, why aren't you picking me up?" That voice was exactly the same as in the dream. My eyes welled up instantly, and I forced back the tears, asking him softly where he was. But all I heard was wild laughter coming from the phone, with many people laughing. The low and aggrieved tone had vanished, and Jordan was laughing so hard he could hardly breathe. "You're such a coward. I'm playing truth or dare." I felt as if someone had poured a bucket of cold water over me. The sadness poured out of me, and the suffocating feeling in my chest suddenly eased. The withdrawal symptoms from the medication began to kick in again after 3 months. So I tried to choke out the words, "You can call me whatever you want, just take me home." The laughter grew louder, and Jordan's voice betrayed his smugness. "Can't you understand? I'm playing a game, stop being so stubborn." Sure enough, the suffocating feeling grew weaker. I stood up and extinguished the cigarette. "Tell me where you are, Guyi. Let me see you one last time." The other end of the phone fell silent. A moment later. "Damn it, who is Guyi?" With Jordan's angry shout, whispers could be heard on the other end of the phone. "Damn it, isn't she Dongji's lackey? Why is she calling another man's name? Donggu, can you handle this? She just agreed to pick you up because she thought you were that Guyi guy, right? This round is on you." Jordan, having lost face, gritted his teeth and cursed at me. "Don't think you can fool me by making up some random person. I'm giving you an out. I'll send you the address. Don't even think about bringing up getting back together in less than half an hour." I quickly got in the car and drove to the address Jordan had sent. The suffocating feeling wasn't as intense as before, but the weight on my chest still made me feel terrible. I knew that the face Jordan had lost would be taken back from me tenfold later. The more he went overboard, the better it would be for my withdrawal. Perhaps this humiliation would be the final push I needed to break free. If I failed, it would mean that Jordan had developed a resistance to being my withdrawal medication. It was time to switch drugs. The bar was bustling with activity. Most people were staying to watch the show. They came to see how Jordan would humiliate the sycophant who had called him by the wrong name. When I walked in, they were checking their watches. Damn, it hadn't even been half an hour. He must have run all the red lights. Donggu is so badass. Are women really this shallow nowadays? Do they really only care about looks? She's being played like this, and she's still fawning over him? Jordan remained leaning against the dim corner, silent. The light and shadow obscured half his face, making him resemble Guyi even more. In the moment their eyes met, a wave of sorrow like drowning slowly crept up. Perhaps the involuntary redness in his eyes pleased Jordan, who curved his lips into a smile at me. Then he poured 3 full glasses of alcohol and said in a condescending tone, "Drink it all, and I'll forgive you." As he spoke, his face was illuminated by the light. Looking at him like that, he truly resembled Guyi stepping out of a dream. I didn't know why he had come back to me. Had he broken up with Lynn again, or had he truly noticed my goodness? But none of that mattered. What mattered was that this time, the suffocating feeling was almost gone. The smile on my lips immediately drew mockery. "Goodness, are you so happy you're covering your chest? Should Donga teach you some training techniques? You're following orders too well." The harsh words didn't affect my excitement at all. I picked up my glass and drank it in one gulp. The first glass was for myself, for not giving up easily. There was a chorus of boos, mixed with whispers of mockery. Damn, how pathetic, coming when called and leaving when told. Jordan let his friends mock me without saying a word, but instead wore a smug smile on his lips. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight on my chest finally lift. Then I picked up the second glass and looked straight at Jordan. The second glass is for Jordan, for the Jordan who doesn't spare me a kind word or a glance. This time, the whispers turned into loud laughter. "Damn it, you're so cheap, ha 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 ha, you really like this, Donggu, I'll go first, don't throw her away when you're done, I want to try too." Jordan furrowed his brows slightly and shot an annoyed glance at the person who spoke. But he still let me finish the second glass of wine. My chest felt lighter than ever before, completely at ease, as if I had never dreamed of Guyi. I felt a bit tipsy. I grinned widely, my steps growing unsteady. I grabbed Jordan's hand and held it in front of me, examining it closely. His palm was soft and smooth, definitely never having held a gun. Turning it over, there was a faint scar on his forearm. It was too shallow. It didn't feel right. Guyi's was deeper. The surroundings were too noisy, as if they were saying I was too casual, that I was so infatuated with Jordan that I had gone mad. Jordan also, and he whispered to me. He said, "You're drunk, Nancy. Don't rush. Let's go home now." As he spoke, he stood up to help me. But I grabbed his arm and stared intently at his open collar. After confirming once more, I felt reborn. Amidst the disdainful, curious, and ambiguous glances of the crowd, I slowly lifted Jordan's collar. There was no mole on his collarbone. There were also no traces of laser removal. Jordan sucked in a sharp breath, his voice hoarse. "Nancy, we can't do this here." Amidst the whistles, I suddenly understood. Jordan wasn't Guyi. As a detoxification drug, he had already done his job. There was no more use for him to me. I abruptly pulled away and picked up the third glass of wine. Jordan finally looked reluctant and raised his hand to stop me. "You can't drink anymore, you're drunk." Before he could finish the word drunk, he was startled by my clear gaze. I smiled at him. "This third glass is to commemorate our brief ill-fated relationship." The glass tilted, and the wine slowly spilled onto Jordan's feet. "Jordan, you acted well, but you're not my Guyi." As he looked at me in shock and anger, I let go of his hand. Glass shards flew everywhere, like a colorful dream shattered into pieces. When Jordan realized that Guyi might actually exist, his face darkened terrifyingly. He smashed the wine glass and kicked one of the people who was cheering him on. He said, "Nancy, if you change your tune and submit to me now, I won't hold it against you." I glanced at the mess on the ground and smiled at him. "Don't, Mr. Jiang. If you don't hold it against me, you wouldn't be my Guyi." However, my Guyi isn't the type to settle things by smashing glasses or kicking subordinates. When provoked, he remains silent, draws his gun, and even adds a silencer before firing. As I spoke, I mimicked a gun with my hands, aiming at his head. Bang! Jordan's forehead veins bulged. I looked at him one last time, smiled, and turned to leave. The chaos behind me no longer concerned me. I wiped the tears from my face. "Goodbye, Guyi. Since I left so decisively, I shouldn't come back to disturb you no matter what." After that night, my life returned to peace. Guyi no longer appeared in my dreams, and I felt a sense of loss when I had nothing to do. Jordan did send a message through someone else, who said, "I've never seen Donga get so angry." He hung up on Lynn's call and decided to come home with you. If you just reach out to him like before and say something nice, you'll be in the clear. I immediately deleted and blocked that person. I did get through it. Every day, I no longer felt like my heart was being squeezed, and work became much easier. Coincidentally, the theater troupe began rehearsals for a new play, and my co-star was the popular male actor Sean. He came to the troupe to hone his acting skills, and the troupe took him very seriously, even customizing a new script for him. But when I received the script, my hair stood on end. It was a story of a life and death, torturous love affair, with the male and female leads on opposing sides. After a series of tests and temptations, their psychological defenses gradually crumbled. Their true feelings were hidden behind lies, and they sank into a world of love and desire, blurring the lines between truth and fiction. At the moment of decision, the male lead fired a gun at the woman. That's right. There were no bullets in the gun. The woman's dagger slit the man's throat, and he smiled as he admitted defeat. "In the next life," he said, "you must take me home." An invisible hand suddenly gripped my throat, and sorrow surged like a rising tide, drowning me in its depths. "Is the male lead named Guyi?" I murmured. Sean entered at that moment. He walked in from the doorway, his silhouette outlined by the light, his features framed in a golden glow. A group of people were walking around with scripts, discussing something. He nodded politely but distantly at me, then sat down naturally on the sofa next to me. "Guyi is a good name. Let's use that," he said. Those almond-shaped eyes, with just a brief glance, made me feel a momentary illusion. As if he had come for me. After speaking, he focused on chatting with the director on the other side until his assistant brought over some fruit tea. He casually picked up a cup and placed it in front of me while discussing the details, as if by unspoken agreement. I stared at his profile, which was completely different from Guyi's, and gradually lost myself in thought. Until Sean's slightly deep voice drifted over. He said to the director, "Let's try the scene first, if Miss Nancy doesn't mind." As he spoke, he turned his head and looked at me with a questioning gaze. I snapped back to reality. The scene we were going to try was the intimate farewell scene, and the director wanted to see how well we could build tension together. No matter how good the scene is, it won't sell if there's no chemistry between the actors, so I naturally had no reason to refuse. However, it was awkward to try an intimate scene on the first meeting. The director kindly cleared the room, and during the pause, Sean went through the usual formalities, asking if I was comfortable with the level of intimacy. I said I had read the script and was okay with it. Sean nodded and began to unbutton his suit jacket. Beneath it was a black-fitted shirt that highlighted his lean waist. The first two buttons were undone, revealing his pale collarbone contrasting with the dark fabric, creating a mesmerizing sight. As he undid the buttons, he lifted his head. Caught off guard, I was startled by the intensity and determination in his eyes. The legendary Sean, referring to Sean in the context, had entered the role with just a single glance. The gentle, polite, and aloof gentleman from before was nowhere to be seen, replaced by the wild and reckless outlaw from the play. He stared at me, stepping closer, his eyes flickering between cruelty and despair, before finally settling on a look of reluctance. He embraced me in a defeated manner. He flipped me around, pressed me against the wall, and surged my body from behind in a hugging position. Not finding the weapon, he bit my neck in frustration. I winced and turned my head, my cheek colliding with his lips. He closed his eyes and kissed me wildly, painfully, and without rhythm. His lips trailed down my hair, eyebrows, and nose, finally clamping down on my lip. I let out a pained sound, but my voice was choked with tears. "Guyi, are you going to do it?" I knew that if this were the scene from my dream, his gun would be pressed against my waist. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. Sean lifted his head, looking at me with intense and loving eyes. His thumb gently wiped away my tears. "Fuck fate," he said. As he spoke, he surrendered his gun and dropped it into the bathtub. The gun sank to the bottom, and Sean curved his lips into a smile that was both liberating and breathtakingly beautiful. Then he lowered his head and kissed me with wild abandon. He kissed me as if there were no tomorrow. The director forgot to call cut, and it wasn't until Sean suddenly pulled away, turned his head, and cursed at him that he snapped out of it and cheered, "Good, good, very good. The emotion is perfect." "But, Mr. Shing, why did you change the script at the last minute? You were supposed to shoot him, and then Nancy kills you." Sean regained his polite demeanor, handed me a tissue, and began to tidy his shirt. After a moment, he said in a hoarse voice, "The way the male lead dies is so frustrating." I paused in wiping my face and looked at him in disbelief. In countless sleepless nights, I had once felt the same resentment. Resentment toward Guyi for forcing me to kill him, forcing me to bear the guilt, but such resentment was buried deep in my grief, seeming insignificant. Feeling my gaze, Sean turned back. "Am I right, Miss Nancy?" he asked softly. Before I could answer, the loud noise at the door grew louder, and Jordan burst in, furious. As my ex-boyfriend, the staff didn't stop him. His face was terrifying as he grabbed my wrist. "Did you just call him Guyi?" Sean had just buttoned his shirt. "Guyi is just a character I play in a play," he said, extending his hand to Jordan in a gentlemanly manner. "Nice to meet you, I'm Sean." Jordan didn't let go of my hand and arrogantly ignored Sean's outstretched hand. Sean furrowed his brow slightly and tapped Jordan's elbow with his fist. Jordan winced in pain and curled his arm, letting go of me. "Please respect my female lead," Sean said, then wiped away the lipstick mark I had left on his thumb with his finger. Jordan's eyes widened in anger, but he insisted on talking to me. He said he had consulted my psychologist and knew I was sick. I don't know how the doctor talked to him, but his understanding of the situation was somewhat different. He thought I had created a person identical to him in my dreams because I couldn't have his love, and I named that person Guyi. In my dreams, I fantasized that Guyi was completely devoted to me, loving me to the point of death. He thought I was sick because of him, so there was guilt in his eyes, but more of it seemed like pride. He said, "Nancy, it's my fault. I didn't know I'd hurt you so deeply." I looked at him curiously, unable to understand where his thinking had gone wrong. He seemed to be trying to comfort me as he pulled me closer. "You used to stroke my neck at night. It turns out it was because you dreamed you were hurting me. Nancy, you endured so much pain without me knowing." I dodged his hand, and he stammered. "You blame me, I know. But at the time, you picked me up, and I thought we were just playing around. I never expected you to feel so deeply. If you had shown any vulnerability, I would never have hurt you like that." I stared at his face, momentarily dazed. I wondered if the Guyi in my dream also had the same expression when I wasn't dreaming. This dreamlike, torturous love affair finally revealed its flaws after I had a moment to catch my breath. Jordan continued his self-reflection. "Nancy, it's my fault. You used a stand-in actor to heal your wounds and named him Guyi. I shouldn't have let you down again. Don't be angry anymore, and I won't blame you either." This was the first time Jordan had ever lowered his guard with me. After speaking, he looked at me with hopeful eyes. After a moment of silence, I suddenly laughed out loud. Jordan's lips also curled into a smile. But I spoke softly. "Did Doc tell you when I started dreaming about Guyi?" He looked confused. "He didn't mention that." He spoke with a pained expression, "But we've known each other for half a year. Have you been this miserable most of the time?" He was still basking in his self-satisfaction when I calmly pulled out my phone and showed him the medical records. 3.5 years, Jordan. I've been dreaming about Guyi for 3.5 years. That bastard Guyi has tormented me for 3.5 years. Thank goodness I met you, a scumbag who looks exactly like him. I stared into his eyes and said slowly, "I used you to quit him." Jordan stood there dumbfounded, his cheeks visibly flushing red. "Don't get angry yet," I said calmly. "You know you didn't lose anything. For half a year, I summoned you whenever I wanted and dismissed you whenever I pleased. I was generous with clothes, money, and belongings, and even acted as a catalyst for his relationship with his childhood sweetheart. No matter how you look at it, you didn't lose out. I helped him recall that I owed him nothing, then told him that, both in terms of emotion and reason, he shouldn't come looking for me anymore. This mutual exploitation had come to a good end." Jordan stood there dumbfounded. I walked away, but suddenly heard him laugh. First a soft snicker, then a loud, unrestrained laugh. Just like that day on the microphone, damn it, arrogant yet pitiful. The days that followed were much quieter, but the suffocating feeling was replaced by an emptiness in my chest. Fortunately, the stage play began filming, and that emptiness was completely shattered by Sean, referring to Sean in the context. He often unexpectedly changed the script, turning a torturous love story into a tale of brave pursuit followed by unresolved longing. In the early stages of the script, he didn't follow the script at all, saying that unexpected collisions were what made Miss Nancy feel a sudden pang of emotion. He succeeded. Every line he blurted out unexpectedly left me dazed. The director said it was just like being touched. I was finally being touched by someone other than Gu Yi. My cheeks flushed slightly, and the tremors from my chest echoed in my ears. I felt like a secret admirer caught by Sean, being controlled and manipulated at his whim. At first, I passively accepted those touches, but later Sean began to want more. He said he also needed me to tease him unexpectedly, that only when they were evenly matched could it be truly heart-stirring. So I looked up at him, confused yet serious. "Are you liking me?" He paused for a moment, then smiled. "You learn quickly." And so we laughed. The director was a bit confused and whispered, "Are you acting or is this real?" I wasn't sure either, but I saw Sean's earlobe turn red for a moment. This state of mind gave rise to something called hormones, which spread throughout the theater all day long. When we gradually brought this state of mind into our off-work hours, we received another message from Jordan. Jordan had been in a car accident, and by the time I heard the news, he had already removed the bandages. Most of his injuries were minor, but he had apparently suffered a head injury and was frantically searching for me in the hospital. I had no choice but to agree to take his call. He remained silent for a long time before finally speaking in a hoarse, choked voice. "It's been a long time, Nancy. Have you forgotten me? If forgetting me would make you happier, I have no problem with that." Months of withdrawal, the high walls I had built up around my heart, collapsed in an instant. The bag fell to the ground, but I didn't bother to pick it up. I ran out like a madwoman. Sean grabbed my wrist, his brows furrowed. "The scene isn't over yet. It's your turn to break the rules." I was momentarily dazed, unable to think clearly. All I could hear in my head was, "Jordan is Gu Yi. Jordan is Gu Yi." Sean couldn't hold me back. I ran to the hospital and straight to Jordan's bedside. The bandage on his injured wrist had been removed. There was a deep, winding wound there, this time identical to Gu Ye's. I lifted his collar, and a small mole on his collarbone was just peeking out. I collapsed into the chair behind me. Just then, I met Jordan's bloodshot eyes. He said, "Long time no see, Nancy." Those words alone confirmed that the body before me was Gu Yi. He stared at me for a long time, his eyes welling up with tears. This was a reunion after a long separation that had brought them to the brink of life and death. In his eyes, there was the joy of regaining what had been lost, but there was even more regret for the pain he had caused in the past. He said, "Nancy, I had a long dream. In the dream, I was Gu Yi." He looked at me sorrowfully. "That wasn't really a dream, was it?" Of course it wasn't a dream. The pain was so vivid, the deep love so intense, even hidden in a dream, it was etched into my soul. A sharp pain pierced my heart once more, and the overwhelming love I felt for Gu Yi in those midnight awakenings surged back. It came without reason, yet it was impossible to resist. I remembered the dagger I had raised, and Gu Ye's triumphant smile. "Don't forget me, Nancy. Take me home, Nancy." 3 whole years of longing without a place to rest, and now it has found a home. I think I'm going to rush over and embrace Gu Yi, embrace the person destined for me. Although it always feels like it shouldn't be, I can't control myself. Just then, Sean's phone rang. "Miss Nancy, would you like to have a private date with your Gray tonight?" My Gray. When that word appeared, a string in my mind was disturbed. After a month of rehearsals, when I heard the word Gray, the first thing that came to mind was Sean's sarcastic remark. He often said, "Someone who loves you would never let you kill him with your own hands." The voice on the phone continued, "Miss Nancy, tonight I'd like to discuss the final plot with you. How can we revise it to elevate the theme of breaking free from fate?" My mind gradually cleared, and I suppressed the urge to embrace Guyi. Across from me, Jordan was still murmuring, "Nancy, that wasn't a dream, it was real." The dagger cutting my throat hurt, but no pain could compare to the agony of parting forever. "Nancy," I thought. "I'd never see you again." The fleeting clarity in my mind was once again overwhelmed by a suffocating sense of despair. Two forces tugged at me, and I struggled with all my might not to open my arms to Jordan. I think I did the right thing. Because the next moment, the girl named Lynn burst in. She embraced Jordan with a trembling voice, burying her face in his chest. She was clearly terrified, saying she had almost thought she had lost him. She was filled with regret, as if she had finally seen her true feelings in the face of life and death. She wanted to take Jordan to get married. It was like a bucket of cold water poured over my head, and I snapped back to reality. Sean's sarcastic comment came through the microphone at the perfect moment. "Such a cheesy plot, how could Miss Nancy stand it?" I composed myself and smiled. The truth was about to come out. I agreed to Sean's date. When I fled Jordan's hospital room, Jordan was glaring coldly at Lynn. His menacing gaze and harsh words were a stark contrast to the Jordan I once knew. The change was startling. I slipped away as quickly as I could, but I couldn't escape the waves of uncontrollable emotions. I forced myself to call Sean and, the moment he appeared, eagerly wrapped my arms around his neck. "You said we'd discuss the plot, any way is fine, right?" His eyes sparkled as he smiled. "As long as you're willing, I'll go along with it." So I kissed him for the first time, taking the initiative. I savored every sensation that kiss brought. The heart flutter was real. The affection was tender. It wasn't what people call suffocation. My fate seemed to have been decided long ago. After the kiss ended, I looked up at Sean. "You know, right?" He smiled without saying a word, then gently tucked my hair behind my ear. "Your destiny is not in someone else's hands." "What if the author?" I asked calmly. "If I said this world is a novel, would you believe me?" Sean looked at me intently. "What are you thinking about? You're not going to use fate as an excuse to abandon me after teasing me, are you?" I saw nothing in his eyes, so I resumed my mischievous smile. "I didn't tease you. We were just discussing the plot." I ended the topic, but the doubts in my heart were resolved. I was certain I had fallen for Sean, yet when I saw Guyi, I couldn't help but act on my feelings without hesitation. This was unreasonable. I thought, just as I had suspected, my fate was indeed written by others. He had decided that Guyi was the one destined for me. This conclusion wasn't a sudden whim. I had begun searching for reasons from the moment I watched the psychological documentary. The person who suddenly appeared in my dreams, the longing that extended from the dream into reality, all of this was abnormal. Until I successfully quit, I thought I had escaped the invisible control. However, the script appeared again. It replayed the scenes, forcing me to relive the intense love with Guyi. It wanted to regain control over me. To finally verify this hypothesis, I bid farewell to Sean and went to the temple, the one that had been frequently mentioned in my recent dreams. The enlightened monk seemed to be waiting there on purpose, asking me if I was troubled by love. I went along with it and asked him to perform hypnosis on me. The dream extended, and indeed, Guyi was in my past life. All the scenes in the dream had actually happened in my previous life. We loved each other but were opposed to one another. After a painful decision, Guyi chose to give me the chance to live, and I died shortly after his death, filled with sorrow. This hypnosis session revealed that the current Jordan is the Guyi from my past life. All the signs are screaming that Guyi has awakened, and we should reunite. Besides this, I saw something else. These were scenes that had never appeared before, displayed there in a blur, as if something had erased them. I cautiously asked the monk, "Are those fading images the path Jordan and I were supposed to take?" Those original plans did not come to pass because of my abstinence, so they were erased. The monk avoided my gaze and recited mysteriously, "It cannot be said, it cannot be said." At this point, what else was unclear? Even if he didn't say it, I had already guessed. My life is a novel. Or a play. My joys and sorrows are all at the mercy of the author's pen. I am grateful to Sean for appearing in my life. He led me to question the script and question Guya's suicidal behavior that only caused trouble for others. He led me to mock this ridiculous sense of destiny with actual actions. Now, everything is clear. I think I know what to do next. That night, Jordan was held up by something and didn't come looking for me. I was finally inspired and worked with the director through the night to finalize the performance. The next morning, Jordan showed up at the theater with injuries. From a distance, tears streamed down his face. He looked at me, exhausted yet focused, as if all the words in the world were inadequate, so he said nothing. I had a colleague give him a ticket for the front row. The first rehearsal of the day seemed deliberately arranged, allowing us to revisit the hardships of our journey together at the moment of our reunion, as if to offset the harm Jordan had caused me earlier. When the performance began, Jordan sat silently in the audience, his demeanor already resembling that of Guyi. Throughout the entire play, the sorrow and despair I felt were not acting. When Sean kissed me, I couldn't help but cry. When Sean and I talked about the future, there was no hope in my eyes, only despair. Sean furrowed his brows deeply, trying to give me a sense of security like he had during rehearsals, to break through our fate. However, with each time I hesitated to speak, he too began to carry a heavy heart. The colleagues around us were shocked to discover that the development of our play was exactly the same as the original script. All the changes we had made with so much effort and creativity were completely absent. The entire performance was suffocatingly oppressive. As the final moment approached, the despair in my eyes finally infected Sean. He embraced me from behind, searching my body intimately, deliberately ignoring the dagger hidden at my waist. He bit me, then closed his eyes and kissed me wildly, as if trying to imprint this feeling deep into my bones. At the height of passion, a gun pressed against my waist. Guyi, are you finally going to act? Bang! The gunshot rang out, and I turned around and slashed Sean's neck. Blood gushed out, and Sean laughed triumphantly. Nancy, don't forget me. In that moment, the dream and the play blurred together, and I burst into tears. Jordan in the audience was already crying uncontrollably. I saw determination in his eyes, though it was tinged with sadness. Seeing me weeping, he was certain I still loved him deeply, certain we would reunite in another life. Those shared dreams of ours made every second we looked at each other feel like we understood each other without words. The agonizing pain in my chest almost made me believe it myself. If Sean hadn't suddenly sat up. Sean, who was about to die, muttered, "Don't forget me," then suddenly sat up from the ground. Damn it, he moved his neck. Is this guy mentally ill? He stood up and helped me to my feet. If you want to die, go kill yourself. Why should others bear the guilt after you're gone? Who the hell is this director? He should get the hell out of here. The scene wasn't over. This was the final version that I had agreed on with the director. A play within a play. The colleagues watching around whispered excitedly, leading the audience immersed in sadness to understand the new meaning. Yeah, why should you want to die using someone else's hands? Isn't that disgusting? It's just moral blackmail disguised as deep affection. They won't even let him forget him, bringing him home. What's the point? Are they preparing for a reunion in the next life? How low can you go? These days, even people who enjoy inflicting pain on others don't act this way. Jordan's expression darkened visibly as he forced himself to stay calm and studied me closely. He was trying to read my expression. With Sean's support, I lifted my head. When I saw the wound on Sean's neck, I scornfully told him to wipe it off. Sean said, "It's because you're obsessed with this trashy novel and insisted on experiencing Guya's selfless love. I only played along with you. Now you're rejecting me?" I wiped the paint off his wound with a tissue and said, "You have to experience it yourself to know that the one who survives is the one who suffers the most. According to the script, you have to carry the guilt for a lifetime and make up for it in the next life." They say that in the next life, he'll still be called a lapdog and ordered around, and only after being tortured both physically and emotionally will the male lead regain his memories from the previous life. Then, with the grace of his life-saving deed, the female lead will endure her disgust and reconcile with him. After saying that, I caught a glimpse of Jordan clutching his chest with his hands, his chest rising and falling despite his efforts to suppress it. That pain, I know it all too well. How many sleepless nights has it tormented me? I wrapped my arms around Sean's neck. It was his own choice. He didn't even try to fight for their love, didn't even give it a shot, and just went to his death. I strongly suspect he knew he was doomed. Sean smiled at me affectionately. What self-awareness. I suspect he probably knew all along that he wasn't a match for the female lead, so he resorted to such underhanded tactics to ensure that even if she won, she'd feel guilty toward him for 2 lifetimes. Sean smiled noncommittally. That was pure nonsense. But I couldn't help but want to repay all those years of humiliation immediately. Jordan was curled up in the chair, in agony, his shoulders slumped, his features betraying despair. It was impossible not to feel pain, especially after going through that hypnosis session, reliving my past life with Guyi once again. But if you want to break free, you have to peel off a layer of skin. In the final scene of the play, Sean asked me, after everything you've been through, do you still think my love for you is not as deep as Guyi's in the play? I knew he was implying something. He was asking the question on his own behalf. I looked down at the audience with a gaze so tangled with emotions, so filled with the irresistible urge to rush toward him despite everything, that I couldn't bring myself to speak. However, I refused to surrender. I refused to surrender to the one who controlled my fate yet refused to grant me even a shred of mercy. So I grasped the lifeline Sean extended to me. I immersed myself completely in Sean's gaze. There was love there was my true heartbeat. So I spoke firmly, fuck fate, it's just self-pitying nonsense. I'm just watching a show, why are you taking it so seriously? I'm just dreaming, I won't take it seriously. Sean embraced me tenderly. The closing music played, with a voiceover from the actors. The so-called destined person does not exist. If they do, brave girls, it is someone you choose with your heart, someone you willingly commit to. There is no room for compromise. The curtain fell, and I saw Jordan slowly collapse onto the first row of seats. Then she was completely cut off from the stage. This play, which explored new perspectives on women, was a huge success in its first performance. I would tour with Sean for dozens of performances. After that, I never saw Jordan again. I thought, the man I once loved deeply, Guyi, was at least resilient. He would eventually, like me, discover the flaws in that uncontrollable situation. As someone also controlled by fate, I sincerely wished him freedom from his bonds. After completely severing ties with Guyi, my symptoms gradually improved. I could almost be certain that I had finally broken free from the pen that had controlled me. During the final tour, Sean finally confessed his feelings to me. Not on stage, nor in the rehearsal hall. In a private setting, he stepped out of his character and asked me seriously if I would be with him. Once again, I saw certainty in someone else's eyes. The chemistry built over dozens of performances, the subtle flirtation during countless rehearsals, and those moments of genuine emotion made it clear to him that we were mutually attracted. He looked at me firmly, Nancy, thank you for breaking through the barriers and coming to me. He held the ring in front of me, full of anticipation. I didn't reach out. I looked up and asked softly, let me willingly wear your engagement ring. Is this your mission? Sean was stunned, and the ring fell to the ground. Sean, who could effortlessly portray countless characters, rarely showed such a flustered expression. After a moment, he regained his composure and laughed self-deprecatingly. He said, you're right. A female lead who can break free from her fate wouldn't fall for my tricks. I didn't say anything. In truth, I hadn't known he was the quest giver from the start. At first, I only suspected he was connected to Guyi. Watching him constantly emphasize breaking free from fate, I thought he was my destined savior. Until Jordan awoke. I saw panic in his eyes, but it wasn't the panic of losing someone you love. So after realizing this was a novel, I dared to make such a bold guess. It was just a guess. The certainty I felt earlier was only 3 parts certainty and 2 parts testing. And he gave me the worst possible answer. The room was deathly quiet. The intimacy stripped of its facade looked fragile and hollow. The sweet moments of the past flooded out and hit Sean's face. He lit a cigarette, and the smoke made him frown and squint his eyes. It seemed like it was going to make him cry. I broke the silence first. If the plan succeeds, what will happen? He stared at me through the smoke for a long time. I'll leave and go back to my world. Sean must be a little afraid. Who doesn't want to go home? He was just one step away from success. He must be afraid I won't let him have it. I picked up the ring that had fallen to the ground and examined it carefully. The part that touched the skin was engraved with our initials. He had put thought into it. Even without knowing my size, he managed to buy it just right. I slipped it onto my finger, and Sean's tears fell. He pretended to be choked by smoke and coughed loudly to cover it up. Don't feel guilty, I smiled and wiped away the tears on my cheek. We each took what we wanted. Sean looked at me in confusion. Since he was the one pursuing me, he should have known that the psychologist had given me two options at the time. One was to quit through Jordan. The other was to transfer my feelings to someone else. Sean was just another dose of medication for me. Sean caught on immediately, fell silent for a moment, then burst into laughter. He chuckled twice, took a deep drag on his cigarette, and laughed heartily. I laughed too. He picked up the red wine glass beside him. We clinked glasses. Good cooperation, Nancy. Especially good, my Gray. We were so happy we were crying. The final performance ended perfectly. Sean held me tightly on stage, refusing to let go. This time, it's really goodbye, my Gray. Leave with peace of mind, I'll be fine. I don't love either you or Jordan. I won't love the fate that binds us, nor will I love the player who moves the pieces like a chessboard, even if it's for redemption. After breaking free from fate like shedding a layer of skin, all I want is love, love for love's sake, nothing else. Sean finally let go and bowed in farewell. And I, after enduring two passive, heart-wrenching experiences, finally gained the freedom to love.